What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Yeah. Oh, baby, how you down? All I need is my brother. I say I'm gonna get high.
This is known as the Get Over Here dance, commonly referred to as the Scorpion. And for those of you who don't remember that, that's probably because you picked the female fighter in Mortal Kombat, one of the female fighters, and you lost. I hope that your reverse sexism served you well. Oh, Katana was awful. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. Me at Escrider with your comments, questions, conclusions, photoshops. I fulfill my legal obligations, draw your own conclusions. We good?
We're good.
At G. Morgan Jr. Doing well?
I'm doing well. She's kind of cute for a cartoon character.
Katana?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I would take the instruction manual to my bedroom when my parents weren't looking.
Stop. No,
and I'd get very comfortable.
This got awkward.
Hey, we have Mark Duplass coming up. You're watching this on YouTube right now. This is the week free trial for those who are not Mug Club members.
Right.
This is what you're missing out on. Every single day we do a daily show. So louderwithcredit.com/mugclub for those who do not yet support the content. And we need you out there supporting it. Stefan Mullen, who talked about that last week, YouTube is trying to close the walls in on conservatives because we own this joint.
Damn YouTube.
We wanted you to see it. Listen, if you don't join the Mug Club, even after this free week, we're still going to do the free show on Thursdays. You're still going to get a free clip every day. So don't worry. No, there isn't going to be less content. Just this week, we are giving you more. Mark Duplass, that'll be a great conversation back on the show. He's been on our show. Then he went on Ruben and did work with Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
Interesting to see.
Good stuff, yeah. Big names.
We'll be talking about Donald Trump. Clint Eastwood, we'll be talking about adult films later on. There's no segue into it. Right now, okay, over the weekend, obviously the big story, Donald Trump visited Saudi Arabia and Israel. Of course, he was praised, he was criticized, both for kind of the pre-snippets of the speech. I think we can see him here at the Wailing Wall. He went to the Wailing Wall and obviously was very moved. He said it's a great wall, a fantastic wall, but if it were his, Hamas would have paid for it. There was a lot of criticism. We'll talk about that, but he talked about being really moved by the Wailing Wall. As a matter of fact, he said that we should incorporate it in the United States at our border, A, to honor those Americans with Jewish heritage, and B, it would confuse the hell out of the Mexicans.
I'm going to go up. See. Hey. Boss. Hey.
Mohammed said,
What is this?
He's America.
Check them out. I am checking them out. They're all yours.
Yours?
See.
See? He's still there in Mexico.
That Hasidic Jew got the short end of the stick. Poor guy. He didn't even see it coming over that wall. No. Okay, so Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia. We actually posted a snippet of the speech beforehand at louderwithcredit.com, and it seemed really harsh, a real turn from Obama's rhetoric on terrorism.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that he softened it when he was there because he said Islam is one of the world's greatest religions. First off, what were your takes on this?
I was happy to see the U.S. kind of take a lead. He did call him out while he was there. I watched the speech when it was given.
Yeah.
And he said it was among the great faiths of the world. So he didn't call it the greatest.
Which
so I'm
it's
okay
not.
With that. Well, I agree.
It's among the
you can't
of
go
the
there,
bottom of the barrel.
You can't go there and just poke the bear
Go beneath
too much.
the barrel, a hole in the ground. There's
Well, you and I
Islam.
both know that to be true.
Yes.
But you have to be somewhat diplomatic.
Well, I mean, it's somewhat diplomatic, but he was obviously talking before the election, saying if you want to look into 9/11, obviously criticizing Barack Obama and Iraq.
Yeah.
He said it was the Saudis, who carried out 9/11. Now, the Saudis did not carry out 9/11. Many of the terrorists were from Saudi Arabia,
Correct.
and the problem is that Saudi Arabia kind of turned a blind eye, and Saudi Arabia has shielded organizations who sponsor terror. But that's not all that different from us and CARE.
It's true that though they have done more than some countries have
Yes.
in that region to weed out and actually have arrested and killed.
That is true.
And they're
Al-Qaeda
moving in the
and-
right direction too. So
They
we
are
want to
moving in the
keep
right direction.
They do a lot of crappy stuff, but they're moving in the right direction. We want to keep that going.
And I was excited to see him call and say, "Hey, look, just out of your temples, out of your places of worship, out of everywhere, just drive the extremists out of here." And you do
from
need
these
that region. to do some of
palaces that we're in. Look at this place.
Also, by the way,
better than Trump
do
Tower.
not give your women the right to drive. It's bad.
It's a bad. I'm gonna put a Mar-a-Lago.
This guy knows. He thinks it's a cabbie. So, this is something else. Yeah, I think it was overall pretty good.
Yeah.
I really do. I think overall it was better than, of course, the media would make it out to be. Maybe not as successful as some of his supporters who said he's gonna just take it to Saudi Arabia and Islam. The guy, we're seeing a more diplomatic Trump there. So I think in the wake of last week, that's a good thing. Cultural appropriation this week in outrage. There was an adult homosexual film called Didgeridoo Me. Seen by U.S. publisher Men.com. It featured two actors effectively using the Aboriginal instrument as an enormous sexual apparatus. And critics online, they lashed out at the scene, saying that it's disrespectful mostly to the didgeridoo, which plays a part in the Aboriginal spiritual life. It's a vision quest, third eye. I just don't understand what kind of a human being watching this has the nerve to suddenly claim the moral high ground over cultural appropriation, and not only that, has no shame in doing it
I
publicly.
wasn't searching for this, but I'll watch. I'm outraged.
Someone's sitting there like, oh, they're watching gay pornography.
How dare they?
They were fine with the upside down wine bottles. Like, can you believe that they did with the didgeridoo? Hey, it looks like you're watching gay porn over there. But that's beside the point.
That's exactly right.
And then, of course, listen, they were not respecting Aboriginal culture, native Australian culture. We've talked about the outrage with this. And further complaints arose when they ran a black light over the smallpox blankets. So it doesn't end well. And they wanted, we talk about Native Americans, Aboriginal culture in Australia. There are a lot of similarities. So they wanted, but unavailable for comment was the Indian from the Village People, because he's dead from AIDS.
Yeah.
Always too soon.
Tying it back. I don't think it's ever too soon. All right, listen. In other news, see, I just keep it cultural appropriation. People are outraged. Like, hold on a second. I get that you want to virtue signal and be outraged, but pick your spots.
Just be more careful.
Do you think these people who are on Twitter, do you think they realize that their parents can read their Twitter? For the rest of their life, their parents will be like, oh, which son of yours are you talking? Are you talking about the one who went to Harvard? No, the one who tweets about didgeridoo me.
We need a new character. Zero self-awareness man.
Zero self-awareness. Good luck getting a job at a bank. They're going to Google you and just, what is this didgeridoo? Oh my God, he's fired. So this is something I've talked about. It's making the rounds everywhere. Everyone has seen this video. If you haven't, we're going to show it to you. I've had a bit in stand-up for a long time about why sea lions, sea otters are just they're just wrong. Animals are the worst things in the planet. People like to act as though they're somehow nicer to each other in the animal kingdom, that humans are the most cruel beasts. No, it's not even close. As seen here with this video of a sea lion and what he does to a girl near the water in Vancouver, British Columbia. Let's bring this up, not gay Jared. So here, look. That's adorable.
Aw,
look
so
at it.
Cute.
It looks a little bit like Hopper, actually, with the whiskers.
I want to cuddle.
Look at him. That's a Disney film. He went in for a kiss. He went in for a kiss. Everyone's laughing. The girl's having such a good time. She feels so comfortable, she's going to turn her back on the sea lion for the most violent thing you've ever seen.
There it goes.
Gotcha. It is just as bad as it gets. It is a ragdolling.
I love it so much.
And by the way, for those sea otters, and people are like, oh, they hold hands, the male, female sea otter, they hold hands while they sleep. I saw it on BuzzFeed. No, okay. The male sea otter picks his mate by biting the female sea otter in the face, clawing her neck, and copulating the life out of her. Whenever you see PETA out there with signs saying, save the sea otters, there are throngs of female sea otters saying, no!
No.
It's like sleeping with the enemy. They're Julia Roberts just trying to get their swim away at dusk.
Hide behind the buoy.
But listen, for those, we never obviously show anything where someone gets seriously hurt. So not the hero that this girl needed, but the one she deserved. Thank God Dr. David Dow was there for the rescue.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Just kill me.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere, man.
But no. In fact, he sued the sea otter's family
Yes.
and got $15 million.
He did.
Dr.
Yes.
David
Good for
Dow
him.
serves his
Good for
purpose.
him.
All right, so CNN right now, this was an article today, not Gay Jared brought it up. They're bitching about what they're calling Trump fatigue.
Sorry.
And basically the article criticizes Trump supporters of being numb or turning off CNN's fake news. They basically admit themselves that they are fake news. Here's the thing with CNN, and we'll talk something else about too, their collusion with Twitter, which I think is important based on one of the comments from their recent co-founders, one of the recent comments from their co-founders, stroke mouth. CNN is basically a campaign to have Trump impeached.
That's all it is.
That's all it is.
24/7. Look, seriously, look at the app or the site.
That's all they
any
do.
time of day. Any week, just Trump.
Well, there's a study that just came out that showed the overwhelmingly negative coverage of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they tried to, they were like, and the only one who covered Donald Trump positively was Fox News, though it depended on the issue. So isn't that what journalism is supposed to be?
Oh my God! You just said Fox News is real journalism.
What I do love about the Trump era is that we've talked about this in the show for so many years now, where MSNBC everyone knew, but I was always saying CNN is just as bad. The Anderson Coopers, the Don Lemons, that fat gay bald guy who always appears on there. I don't know his name. Fat gay bald guy on CNN.
I really think they're worse at this point in time on the Trump stuff than Vox, worse than HuffPo.
You see Jake Tapper, who everyone really loved and respected,
Yeah.
he even tried to corner Marco Rubio, getting him to speculate on
morning.
Jake Tapper's speculation.
Yeah. It was so funny. And Rubio didn't bite at all.
And in one of their articles, they say this in the Trump fatigue article. I thought it was hilarious. They say, or the final option, what you should do is shut off your TV, turn off your computer, take the Twitter app off your phone, and stop reading anything that starts with Donald Trump said. But as soon as you're reading the article, ding, the CNN notification comes up. Donald Trump said. They're the worst offenders. And we'll get into it more because I want to get into what happened here with the Twitter co-founder. So the Twitter co-founder, Evan Williams. By the way, his whiskey sucks. That's not true. Some of it's okay. But he said this, and I think this is really alarming, okay? He said, I thought once everybody could speak freely, he's talking about Twitter, and exchange information and ideas, the world is automatically, meaning it would automatically be a better place, he told the Washington Times. I was wrong about that. So he says here, I was wrong about the idea of a platform that allows for free speech. Here's his justification. If it's true that he, meaning President Trump, wouldn't be president if it weren't for Twitter, then yeah, I'm sorry. Think of how scary this is for a second. He's saying, I was wrong. I thought I really supported freedom of speech. I wanted a platform that was pro-freedom of speech, but I was wrong. I was wrong because ISIS and radicals have used social media as a platform, or even, I was wrong because fake news has become a problem where people just make stuff up and it's clickbait and they make tons of money lying to people. I was
didgeridoo porn running rampant
didgeridoo
across their
pornography.
platform.
The abuse of the boomerang and wonderful Aboriginal culture. Not I was wrong about that. He is wrong because he didn't get precisely the result he wanted in an election. I was wrong about free speech because my broad didn't win. Think about how scary that is for a second. They're willing to completely do a 180 on something that should be one of the most fundamental values in your life. The First Amendment is a great divider. Before you even get to the Second Amendment, where do you line up on free speech? Now, Twitter is a business, has the right to do whatever they want, but he was saying the business model was an open platform and is now saying that's a bad thing because of President Trump. Maybe this is why their Twitter stock is plummeting. That's 5 days, right?
Yep, that's 5 days.
And then that's after we have, that's 5 years.
Wow.
That's like the focus study group when they were watching About Schmidt and Kathy Bates' nude scene shows up. Frank Luntz in his sneakers and toupee. Now, do you like her breasts or not? I don't know, Frank Luntz. Why do you have a job? So This just goes to show, they lump everyone in too, by the way. There are so many Americans out there who pulled, kind of held their nose, pulled the lever for Donald Trump, or so many Americans who were tired with Barack Obama. A lot of black Americans, if you look at the statistics, who voted for Donald Trump, even union workers across the Rust Belt. And people like this on Twitter, they throw that entire voting base in with Nazis and Pepe the Frog as though, you know what? Maybe you people are just bad. Maybe you're maybe you're wrong. And instead of listening, they're going, yeah, we were wrong about freedom of speech. We were wrong to think that listening would be good because we lost. Now we need to listen less. Is it me? It's scary.
And that's one reason I really appreciate Mark Duplass and coming on, because he's
come on the show.
He's a guy who's like, hey, we lost. Maybe we should listen more, actually.
Yeah. Maybe we should actually talk.
Yeah. How dare you?
I know. The nerve on that boy.
Whoa.
Oh, that boy. All right, final thing we'll get to before Mark Duplass, because we want to bring him out here.
Before we do that, we should tease something coming up at some point.
What?
On the CNN note.
What, on a CNN note?
We are going to be doing...
Oh, that's true. With CNN, that's true. By the way, we don't know when. We are going to watch CNN for 24 hours in the coming month. A 24-hour live stream of watching CNN. Me and Ake Jared, you can watch along with us to prove the point. Kind of like the Amy Schumer timer, we will have a timer as to how long it takes before you get into an anti-Trump smear.
It should be a drinking game associated with that.
Well, no, he'll be hauled out in a stretcher. Alcohol poisoning is a real thing. If we're doing a drinking game with water, we get water poisoning.
That's true.
All loaded guns will be far away from us.
It'll be far away from us, not within reach. 24 hours, Ake Jared and I will watch continually, nonstop, nothing but CNN.
Oh my gosh.
Just so you can see how bad it's gotten. Okay, final story. Clint Eastwood went on a rant on political correctness.
Yep.
At Cannes Film Festival, he said a lot of people thought it was politically incorrect regarding Dirty Harry. That it was, he said that was the beginning of the era that we're in now, where everybody thinks everyone's politically correct. We're killing ourselves by doing that. We've lost our sense of humor. He made some really valid points that people should hear. Unfortunately, he made them to an empty chair, so I wish more people would have been there to hear them. And what's funny is we did our top 5 films that you could never make today. Blazing Saddles thing was #1, but the entire Dirty Harry series.
We included that.
We included that. You couldn't do it now.
Slapshot.
I think, was Slapshot in there? I think Slapshot was in there.
It should be if it's
You can
not.
go just run a search if you're watching on YouTube, Crowder, top 5 movies, and it'll have top 5 movies that you could not have made. But the entire Dirty Harry series, all the way up to Sudden Impact, could not be made today. I mean, if the left, today's Hollywood left, and they were always out of touch, but if today's Hollywood left had gotten their grubby paws on the series, you would have had a very different Mr. Callahan.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Is he in transition or just pansexual curious? To tell you the truth, given today's gender spectrum, I find it hard to tell myself. But given that any assault on me would count as an extra hate crime with additional 10 years punishable in prison, just on account of the rouge, you have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel tolerant? Well, do ya, punk?
Hey, I got to know.
I'm just a fag.
Oh, the forgotten, just traditional gay. We don't even think about them anymore. I actually think I like that version of Dirty Harry. You can tweet us if you want him back. We have Mark Duplass coming up next. Stay tuned.
It's just I won't let marry your You're funny, talk about grand waking up, talk about window.
Fill me in.
Is blackjack your game?
It's not so much my game as it seemed my kind of place. I'll stay.
You sure you don't want to try for more?
Well, when I see something I like, I know how to hang on to it.
Interesting philosophy.
What can you tell me about that mug club?
I'm just a girl looking for a good time. Hit me.
Are you sure that's what you want?
Oh, I'm quite sure.
Positive.
Hit me.
Hey, oblige! Lecture! America!
All right, there we go. We have to let Pogo play out. Everyone loves Pogo. And actually, I will tell you this. We've probably gotten more positive feedback on an interview with this next gentleman.
This guy.
You said when you get recognized
Just
all the time.
Like a week ago, even someone recognized me, and this is the interview they brought up and said, "I really like that interview with this guy." I'll let you.
Well,
I'll let
and I
you
hope
spill the name.
he has the same feedback. I hope people were kind and positive with him. At Mark Duplass on Twitter, and his show on HBO, I believe I have this right. Room 104 is coming out soon, right?
That's right.
Room 104. I'm really glad to have you back. I know it sounds like it warms my heart, but like I'm glad to always have someone who, with a differing opinion, come back in a friendly atmosphere. Did you receive mostly positive feedback from the last time you were on?
I gotta say, I'm not putting a shine on it. It was incredibly positive. You know, I got a couple of people, and it was 50-50. A couple of people from the right, just extremely upset with me just because of the nature of my existence and my views. And I don't think they could transcend the fact that my profile is that of an extremely like out of touch Hollywood person. All right. And so, and by the way, fine, I can handle that. And then I also got some stuff from the left being like, hey, you can't go on Crowder and normalize these types of opinions by being friendly to them. And that's not okay, which I totally disagree with. But I'm like, I understand. I respect that opinion. Sure. So that was pretty minimal. But overall, the thing that I really got was like, hey, man, don't agree with you at all, but really appreciate you coming and having a civil conversation, and like to see what you're up to. And in particular, you know, next time you sort of start one of your charity campaigns, as long as it's like a pretty, you know, bipartisan cause, I'm in, and I'm there to help. So that was very encouraging.
Well, I'm glad to see that. I also got thousands of comments of people saying they hated me because they watched Creep that night and then they couldn't sleep. So that obviously is indicative of a great performance. But I can't tell people like, screw you, I hate you. You made me watch Creep, and now I can't, because everyone has a friend like that. I remember my friend. Let's call him Adam because he was named Adam, and it was like, oh, you wish he gets a friend, just not you. Yes. Everyone had that friend. So I'm glad to hear that. And then after that, you went on Dave Rubin's show. Did I hear this correctly? You're going to Africa with Glenn Beck or something?
Yeah, I went to on Rubin. Rubin and I had a great conversation. Rubin and I are obviously a lot closer on our core values, so that I didn't really worry that was going to be an issue. And then went on Glenn Beck, who I found truly fascinating. He reached out to me, and you know, I guess that I wasn't paying close enough attention on the kind of like the shifts he was going through as a person. And my feeling was just like, oh, this guy has had a really hard time in life and is now much less confident in his theories and is much more open as to what's going to work. And we had fun. I think we had a lot of fun realizing that, like, if we had chosen to talk about abortion, we would be screaming at each other. Right. But we found a couple of connection points. We're both big charity guys. And you know, I am essentially a libertarian when it comes to my business. You know, I'm like, I look at Hollywood like the government. I'm like, get out of my face. I want to do my own thing, and we connected on that, and so yeah. So
and he's a real creative type too. I think a lot of people don't realize about Glenn Beck. You know,
Totally.
he was kind of put into AM radio became so much of a box. I mean, we were on radio for a while too. And we said, okay, screw it, because it is very one note, and you get that whether it's MSNBC or CNN, you know, on the left, and then on the right, it gets to this, you know, red meat. I don't like you liberals, and I know people like Glenn Beck kind of felt like they were put in that box. And we've always managed to just break outside that box, and then the sand goes everywhere and generate no revenue. But I'm glad to hear that. You know, here's one thing I find interesting that you say that from the left, because I've gotten that a lot where they're like, you can't normalize his views.
Yeah.
I don't know what views I hold that are ones that shouldn't be normalized. For example, yeah, I understand you probably shouldn't go on a neo-Nazi show who actually believes in murdering people who aren't white or something like that. But I've never had a leftist actually capable to point to my views, which are so extreme that couldn't be normalized. Did they give you any like specifics, or just don't do it?
No. And just in all fairness, both of those extremist opinions I got felt like, quite honestly, people who were just knee-jerk reactioning and maybe even trying to get me to respond to them on Twitter. Yeah. Some people kind of poke me on purpose just so that they can like, hey, Mark Duplass wrote to me, you know? Yeah. So I didn't get the sense that was like an extremely well vetted and thought out opinion. Sure. I think it's just, quite honestly, what you represent to the left. If someone is an extremist leftist and they look at, you know, your feed on Twitter or something like that, they're just going to pick up on those little nuggets that are catchy things to get people to watch the show, and they're going to think that encapsulates you, and you're thusly defined, and they don't want to deal with you. And, you know, I mean, I get that from the right a little bit, but it's not the...
Well, that's what I find interesting, because I don't, if I go on a leftist show, the criticism I get from the right is never, you shouldn't do that show. It's, hey, that guy is wrong about, you should have called him out on this, that, or the other thing. Whereas I have heard from most liberal guests who've come on the show, and this is the problem that I think we see, that I would say is a kind of exclusive to the left, and that is, you shouldn't have this conversation at all. Because that's never the criticism I get for having you on the show or going on Ruben's show or something like that. And I feel that's a very different reaction.
Well, you know what? Now that you say that, and to be more clear, the point is it's not so much that I came at all. It's that you let him express all these views and you didn't word him up as a true representative of the left. So I get it is somewhat similar to what you're talking about. It is like, how could you just accept that and listen and validate that, when for me, like, as a person who's been to therapy and is in a marriage, like, validation is everything. That's how I get by in all of my relationships. Like, I look at so many political arguments right now and I'm just like, it's been very interesting as I've gone through this process as an extremely uneducated person in politics in general. Like, I'm just leaning into this as a hobby, and I'm on a fact-finding mission as opposed to a, like, let me show you what's up and how to do it. And over the last, like, 2 months or so, I've learned, like, kind of incredible things that have been, I don't know, like, I found a lot of my own personal blind spots on some stuff, so it's been good.
Do you have anything specific that you would say was like a blind spot? I mean, not to put you on the spot at all.
Like, in terms of specific blind spots, like, one great one that I got mostly from Twitter, from people on the right, was like, why don't people on the left support veterans? What's the issue here? You know, and I thought about it, and my initial reaction was to get defensive and be like, I like veterans, and we do. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? A lot of liberals really don't. You hear them championing causes, you hear them championing charities, and they don't do stuff for veterans. And I realized what it was, I think, is that veterans get grouped up unfairly with this whole support of the military, which the left is traditionally saying, why can't we give more money to education, to arts education in schools? Why are we giving so much to military spending? And unfortunately, because they're not thinking about it deeply enough, like, veterans are caught up in that. So that was a really great blind spot that was called on me, and I was like, you're right. So now I'm like, let me try and find a really good veteran bipartisan cause that I can run a charitable campaign on. Likewise, as I was talking...
I would say this too, actually, as far as a blind spot on the right. I think, and we've seen it with people we see it all the time, there's constant corruption with veteran charities in the right, because the right is so quick to give money to veterans causes. And a lot of the time people take advantage of that. And so this idea, if you go, well, wait, hold on a second, I support the veterans, or even I support the war, but I don't support this specific organization, people will jump on you from the right. And that's an area where we've gotten flack for. We've even gotten flack as huge Second Amendment people for example, talking about certain gun organizations going, hold on a second, these maybe aren't the organizations you want to support, and they take that as an attack on the idea. So I think that goes both ways.
Yeah. And then, I kind of, I got into a lot of like America First type discussions because, we talked about this a little bit last time. Like my kind of personal feeling of just like, it's not just your neighbor, it's everybody. We're in a global environment. And one thing that was a real easy blind spot that I caught on at least some of my fans on the right was like, why are you not giving more money to people at home when there's so many problems at home? Why are you trying to do all these international charity works? Like, what are you doing? We gotta like fix our stuff here, And so I was able to cross the aisle on a really good clean water cause. And it was like, okay, people on the right generally want to know that like we're giving fishing poles. We're not giving fish. If we're giving charity, we want it to be a sustainable system that's not going to create dependence on us.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so these clean water charities are a perfect thing. You go in, you install a clean water system, boop, boop, you walk away, it's there, it's great. So I ran something, I ran a campaign on that. We raised like $10,000 and I got a ton of support from the right on that, which was really great. So that was like a big thing. It was just like, okay, if you're not super defensive about your blind spots, stuff can work out pretty well.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel as though, now I would argue from a factual standpoint, there's a book called Who Really Cares by David Brooks, I think by David Brooks, and it talks about people who give, and conservative Christians actually just tend to be the most charitable, and this is not a conservative Christian.
That's 100%. That's no one can deny that.
Well, I'm interested. It's interesting that you would say that Arthur Brooks. David Brooks is the New York Times guy. I always get them mixed up, but it's interesting that you say that. Do you think this has maybe opened your eyes to this idea? Again, we've always talked about this, just sort of questioning intent. You see a lot from we say from the left, and I would stand in that position. And if you think I'm wrong, you can tell me why. But a lot of the times, well, why don't you care about X? Has this maybe opened your eyes that actually conservative Christian red state countries seem to care more and are willing to part with their dollars more, just not by force? Do you feel that's an accurate assessment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, from what I can tell and from what I can hear, that seems to be pretty broadly accepted, whether it's true or not. That seems to be the thing that people are saying, which is just like, why are you forcing me to give to this organization? Please tax me less. I'm a generous person. And some version of either trickle-down economics, because I have more money, I'll put it into the economy, it'll feed everything, or because I have more money and you didn't tax me, I am now free to give more.
Right.
I hear that a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And not just, I think, by force, but we really care about the effectiveness a lot. That's why so many conservatives have problems with the welfare state the way it is. If we see an effectiveness leak.
Yeah, well, that's the issue. It's not. I think, and we talked about this even with Stefan Molyneux, who's an atheist, for example. He's he's an atheist philosopher, but he actually said, I actually find that I like Christians more. I said, A, because atheists tend to be very aggressive and unemployed, and he's an atheist. But he said, also, it's just they're willing to go through the process, even if we come to different conclusions. Mm-hmm. And I think contrasting when I talk about the left, maybe you saw that tweet right after Roger Ailes died. By the way, we had written like 5 Roger Ailes jokes
hilarious,
the day he died. They were hilarious. So we just didn't use them. We're like, well, that's tasteless. But they were jokes. Whereas Cenk Uygur, when I used terms like the left, came out and said, I'm glad he had those 2 extra years so he could die alone, humiliated, and destitute. And the spirit of that is just so much meaner. And I feel as though that's more accepted on the mainstream left. Just the spirit of idiot, you dumbass, you don't care. It's okay as long as we're winning.
Mm-hmm. So I have a couple thoughts on that.
Go ahead.
Getting a general vibe based on our whole conversation here and the tone of how this is going, that like, what I feel from you in a very respectful way and a very gentle way is you're ready to engage in a debate with me on how the left is actually behaving in bad ways, and you're ready to stand on some positions that are saying left behaving worse than people on the right a couple of times. And you know what? You may very well be right. And my position is I'm actually not in a position from a state of being as educated you are politically about all these things.
Sure.
Or do I have the interest actually in engaging in it? Because what's happening to me lately, and look, you can disagree with this or not. What's happening to me lately, where I'm finding my place is of interest to me and that people are responding to, is just as simple as I can possibly say, is in ferreting out similarities and not differences. And this has been the most exciting thing to me. And I bring it up in reference to, the Glenn Beck situation, where I was just like, dude, if he and I want to go at it, I mean, we can go at it all day long, respectfully or yelling or whatever it is. What I found really fascinating, and what I'm trying to dial in right now, is this kind of new form of debate. And Glenn and I are setting up a couple of speaking engagements to this tune, which is basically saying, like, okay, it's very easy for us to get into a room and talk about why we think one side is behaving worse than the other, or why one side is maybe more right than the other. What if we got to a place where we said, okay, what if we try to cobble together some ideas and try and build upon what we know from each side of an argument upon a system that doesn't work on either side? For instance, welfare. Whoever's running it, the government, whether it's the right or the left, it's just not working. So what if the form of debate was, well, I don't have the answers and you don't have the answers. Maybe we could try and build something together and try and build on some ideas. This is the thing that I have discovered through this process that is the most interesting to me. And I don't know how that resonates with you. And that's kind of what
I agree with that. And I'm not looking for, I was asking because of kind of the reaction that you mentioned coming off of the last show, and the reaction
of some of those people.
Yeah. And the reaction that we've gotten, like I said, this last week has just been exhausting. I mean, it's just been in politics. It's not fun for anyone on either side. I'm sure we could find a litany of.
Here's what I would say. I am willing to write off the percentage of extremists on the left who come at me and say any of those things you're talking about, being a little more vitriolic than they should, a little more reactionary, ready to just call anyone a racist, xenophobe, homophobic person when they say one thing wrong, or, to your point, make tasteless jokes about Roger Ailes' death. Likewise, I am willing to write off someone on the right who comes at me and discredits anything I say or do because I want to support Planned Parenthood and just saying, you're a fucking baby killer, go to hell and die. You know, I'm not really going to be able to engage in that.
No, you're not. And I will tell you this. I mean, well, here's the thing. Let me ask you this, because what you said, I think there are common grounds, but it's sort of predicated on the idea that both people say, well, maybe you don't have the answers and I don't have the answers. Let's build something. What if someone respectfully says, I do think I have some of the answers, and would point to it? For example, I think Planned Parenthood is an example. We talked about this. They don't provide mammograms. They cannot provide breast cancer screenings. It's just they never have, they never will, they can't. And they actually don't provide the majority of women's health care in the country. So I would say an answer, for example, this would be an answer coming from the right, respectfully. In other words, I'm starting off saying, okay, it's not neither one of us have the answers. I think I have an answer, and you can tell me if you think it's wrong. Conservatives do not have a problem with giving funding to other crisis pregnancy centers or pregnancy resource centers that don't perform abortions. And there are more than enough of those.
That's the sticking point.
Would that not be something that people could find, common ground if, again, we're not even talking about removing the public funding at this point. Let's just put it into places where they don't actually perform the abortion services.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a very rational argument, you know. None of those organizations, and to my knowledge, are as big and have as much reach as Planned Parenthood does. You know, when you're dealing with like 3 to 4% of the services of Planned Parenthood actually go towards abortion, I would say that like those other services are worthwhile and they aren't worth defunding. But I understand one issue voting, you know, like, and I understand. I'm the last person who's going to come up and say like, if you are truly a pro-life person, it's really hard for me to stand and say like, you should absolutely vote for the support of Planned Parenthood. Sure. I get why you don't, and I'm okay with that.
Well, and this is not to argue about it, because my wife, that's what she does. She works at a crisis pregnancy center. Volunteers, actually, I should say. And we were just talking about this the other day. You know, the most common, no one doesn't know about birth control in 2017. As a matter of fact, in the years she's done it, it's never happened once that someone didn't know, they knew, they decided not to use it for whatever reason. Often a man is pressuring a woman into an abortion, and they'll come to this clinic, and they've talked about how easy it is to get women to have the child or to give it up for adoption, just as easy as it would be to veer them toward abortion. They come in and they're looking for a decision to make. And at these crisis pregnancy centers, legally, they are not allowed to tell someone, this is what you do. As a matter of fact, all they do is provide resources and facts. If a woman has an ultrasound, 9 times out of 10, she doesn't get the abortion anymore. If she knows that there's a beating heart at, I think, 6 weeks, they inform them with these kind of, they give them this kind of information.
I understand your point,
But the issue with Planned Parenthood, for example, this is where, not to fact check anyone, but this idea that 3-4% are only abortions, it's not true. And the reason for that, this is again where I would say conservatives are saying, hey, we can find common ground by giving it to other organizations. You know, if you go in for an abortion to Planned Parenthood, Abby Johnson wrote a great book on this. She was a former worker there. If you go in, you have an examination. Let's say you have some kind of a pap smear, or they give you a prescription. Yeah. You meet with a doctor. If all of these are done to perform an abortion, that could be counted as 5 or 7 services, even though every single one of those services was an auxiliary service to the abortion. Yeah. Even though it's an abortion, that would count as 1 out of 7 services. And so they do trick the numbers, because the vast majority of their actual money comes from abortions, and that's why we have a problem with it. It's the big ticket item there. It's the big ticket item, and if they're just as incentivized to push people to the big ticket item as my wife is to push people away from it. And I think that's a place where we could find common ground, even if we're not pro-life. Like, hey, we just don't want to be paying for it.
Right. I totally understand your point. I hear you. I feel like we are more entering the realm of a debate. I don't mean to do. I just say because that is something where it's just like I think it needs to be okay to. When you say not to fact check and you fact check me, that's fact checking. So
well, I think it's helping to educate, because that's why people might be so defensive on the right, because they hear, for example, they hear a talking point so often, and when we know it not to be true. Yeah. And I don't think that you know it not. I don't think you're an ignorant person. I don't think you're an uneducated person. I just think it's something they throw out so often that if you don't do more than a glance, it's easy to accept it. And I think that that's more important than just saying, hey, let's meet in the middle, is if someone says, well, hold on a second, what if that is incorrect? And then meeting together on, agreeing on the actual information. Yeah. That's my goal.
Listen, I hear you, and I think it's totally fine for you and I to have different agendas in terms of like what we're about, because from my personal perspective, like when I feel the response from people in terms of what is effective right now, and what you felt last time was like you felt probably zero resistance from me coming in and trying to listen and try and like hear some things of you. And I think that was really eye-opening to your audience, that like anyone from the left could do that, because quite frankly, I think that we are so dug in right now. We are so extremely vitriolic that anytime that there's an open and listening energy, it's just extremely powerful. Right. And so there's a documentary on Netflix that I would encourage you to watch, or encourage any of your viewers to watch. It's really fascinating. It's called Accidental Courtesy, okay? So
it's not the Bodyguard film of Justin Bieber's Bodyguard, for those wondering.
It's not the Bodyguard film.
The worst documentary. I thought there's no way they could make this boring. They did.
5-star documentary. So there's a guy named Daryl Davis. He's a black musician from Illinois.
Oh, yes. I watched this. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so what he does is, for those who haven't seen it, is he befriends members of the Ku Klux Klan, and he doesn't sit with them and tell them in respectful, intelligent debate and with data why they should not be a part of the Ku Klux Klan, and he doesn't even use his knowledge to convince them, which I think pretty much everybody can get on board with, that judging a whole group of people by their skin color and assuming they're terrible people is just not a great use of time and energy, and a super educated way to go about life.
It's bad.
He doesn't do any of that. He sits with them. He has drinks with them. He listens to them. He doesn't challenge them, and he befriends them. And now he has a closet full of Ku Klux Klan memorabilia and Ku Klux Klan robes from these members of the Ku Klux Klan whom he has befriended, and who has never once tried to out-debate, never once tried to prove that they were wrong, even gently. And they have left by sheer example. And that is like, in my opinion, that's some Jesus level shit right there. I mean, that is just like, it's impressive stuff. And I'm never going to be that person, and I don't know how to be that person, because quite frankly, I'm lucky I don't have to face that kind of persecution. But that has been such a strong example to me of what a powerful version, in my opinion, and what I'm looking for is in debate. Because I have a lot of friends on the left that I have a lot of conversations with,
Sure.
And a lot of them are just like, dude, what are you doing? You're like wasting your time. You're not arguing positions. You're not trying to pull people over. And I'm like, I'm not going on Crowder to tell him that he's wrong and to pull him over. I'm going on Crowder to open my mind, to listen to him, to hear what he had to say about Planned Parenthood, to try and soak some of that in, see if I can get educated, see if I can find another blind spot of my own so I can grow as a person, and quite possibly more importantly, to show some of his fan base that, yes, there are people on the left who are willing to listen. And by I guess.
But I think it'd be okay if you challenge me on something. Put it this way: you can always feel free to, and I want this to be.
And it's not binary. You can do both. Yeah.
Well, no, I want it to be different because I think a lot of other people are afraid to. And again, I wasn't trying to challenge. It's just that's information that I, for example, that a lot of people don't know. But I would, I think when you read it up, you go, oh my God, this is right. I also feel there's the first rung of the ladder. And that's kind of the first time in the show. Someone with Ruben and I would go, oh, we don't hate each other. And I think people also need to be okay. Okay, there's ring 2.
Now you want to dig in.
No, not dig in. But like you told me about the veteran thing. I think that's right on the right. Where, like I said, people are exploited on the right, on the flip side, with raw. Yeah, I mean, listen. I worked at Fox News for years, right? They put an American flag behind something, and sometimes it is really easy to fool people into some sense of patriotism, where you and I would agree. And I actually, I'm fine with being challenged on those things, as long as it's in a respectful, civil way. And my point is, if ever you think I'm wrong, or your friends think I'm wrong, I would like to hear. I would like to hear my blind spots as well. And the problem is we either get someone like you who's just so nice and you listen. And if we're both just listening, then nothing happens.
Then it's boring.
And then there are people who are just so angry where they just come on and say, you're a baby killer because you support guns. So I'd like this show to be a balance of all the above.
Here's a to your request. Here's just a gentle challenge. Do you think that someone who is a trans person might take offense at the word tranny at all?
I think some of them absolutely would, yeah. And we've had people on the show who call themselves trannies. Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about using that word? What's your sense of that?
It's a good question, especially because I think you understanding sort of the spirit. We don't do things just to hurt people. There are some people on the right who just do things to hurt people. But I come from the Lenny Bruce school of thought, and the great performance from Dustin Hoffman. Don't take my words away. Yeah. You can't take the words
Pretty
away.
Good Dustin Hoffman, by the way.
I don't know if it is. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. It's Dustin Hoffman doing Lenny Bruce, so we're thrice removed. So I am very, very reserved when it comes to taking words off the table, especially as a comedian, because I saw people, a comedian of mine, a friend of mine named Mike in Montreal, left-wing, vegan, and we actually would do colleges together, and he had a bit where he used the word tranny, and never at any point was it considered hateful. So this kind of removing people's words until we're standing on this little plot of land, I do make that I think it's more of a moral stand to say, no, we're not going to concede that, than concede each word that might be offensive. So, but it's a valid question.
Is there any credence to the argument? And I don't feel the need to strongly make this argument, but I know a lot of people who would make the argument like there was a time when the word nigger was totally comfortable to be used. And then we learned that this was a civil rights movement. These were people that needed to be validated, and they didn't need to be labeled as such with a derogatory word. So we came up with new words, and then they became an equally respected part of society, and that worked out. There are a lot of people in the trans movement who would say, listen, this is a group that has been persecuted and been made fun of and joked about. They're not really a titan of industry that needs to be jabbed and joked at and taken down. They're a group that's having a hard time and could be lifted up, and it might be not a bad thing to be respectful and give them the terminology that they prefer, even if that has changed over the last couple of years.
Well, when they come on the show, we just use neutral anything, because the truth is I'm liable to screw up. When I have a guy with mascara on and lipstick who looks like a guy with a 5 o'clock shadow, I'm much more likely to say he. Now, we've had Blair White in the show who looks very much like a woman. My natural inclination is to say she. So
totally.
I'm not someone who dies on that hill. We're like, well, Caitlyn Jenner, he.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, okay? We're not all in on this verbal contract, and it's really easy to screw up. So I'm just not going to give the leeway. And if someone says, hey, don't call me a tranny, that's fine. But
were you aware that tranny was disrespectful to some people?
I'm aware that it's offensive, even when we play Spot the Tranny, and we played it with a tranny. I am, but I think the comparison to the N-word, I think it's invalid for a couple of reasons. And I would say invalid for mainly reasons that stem from the left sort of kneecapping their own arguments, because this idea of gender fluidity, well, if there's gender fluidity, then it's kind of, like the whole I was born this way. Well, actually, it's the opposite. You're saying that someone can't be born into a male brain but they're born to a female brain. It's actually gender fluid, that people can choose their not only sexuality, but their gender on a day-to-day basis, and there are 52 different genders that can't be recognized biologically.
What do you mean by choose your sexuality?
Well, this is pansexual, that you can flip your sexuality day to day. I mean, HuffPo just had a recent article about it, and you can also flip your gender day to day. And I think that comes with a litany of questions. Well, can I change my gender enough to apply for a woman's scholarship grant and then switch back? I mean, this is the kind. These are questions, and I think that it's an important.
There is certainly room for that system, and that, like, you can't criticize me because I am a minority of some sort for abuse of that system.
Yeah,
for someone
I just don't think it's.
I can get away with a lot here because of that, and I think that that's a fair point.
Well, we did an experiment with that where Naka Jared and I went to a mall where he, just as a gay guy, said the exact same thing that I said as a straight guy. And they called the cops on me, and they thought he was adorable. You know, for example, he just walked up and he said, "Can I just say your tits are to die for?" And the lady was like, and I just walked up and stone-faced said, "Can I just say your tits are to die for?" And wasn't the same exact reaction. It was funny though, but yeah, I don't think
it's standard of that. Yeah,
I don't think it's a valid comparison because you can't choose race, and I think that's a word that was designed specifically. If you look at the history of the N-word, designed specifically to demean and make someone subhuman. Tranny was a colloquialism that they coined themselves, and they've now decided to change as a political weapon. They weaponize words, whereas I don't think the N-word was weaponized by the victims initially as a word. It was used by the oppressors, and I think there's a very distinct history difference there. That's just my take.
That's your take, yeah. Well, you know, I would say that, you know, not a big one, but like if you're looking for accessibility, and I don't know even that you are, but if you're looking at accessibility on that joke, you're looking for everybody to lean in on it. When a Twitter headline doesn't say tranny in it, you'll get probably further in terms of people being able to laugh at it, you know?
Yeah, most of our Twitter stories with trannies will actually include trannies that are on the show.
Yeah.
Who call themselves that. So, but no, I agree with you. And listen, there's for example, jokes about Roger Ailes and sexual harassment going up in hell. These are also not going to be the most accessible. And we acknowledge that's the fine line.
I would agree with you.
Between comedy and trying to reach across the aisle. And we try to walk it fairly. Mr. Duplass, we have to go. Always want to have you back. And listen, always, if ever you think even I'm wrong or you just want to talk or ask a question, we really want to be, to all of it. If it's just listening and having a conversation, great. And if it's calling me out, or I also want that, all of it is welcome here. And
what I would be interested in, if you are, and we could try this some other time, is like, finding a system, even if you think you have really good ideas, but that you're not 100% sure you have the right answer on. And that could be something as simple as like healthcare because it's so complex, or welfare, whatever it is. And then maybe you and I could like pick a subject and see if we could go in on it together. And like teach each other some things of what we like, what we don't, and see if something could be built. That's like kind of interesting to me. It might be boring, but I'm interested.
No. How about this? Because every now and then we have with Patrick Moore, the founder of Greenpeace in ecology and in atmospheric science. A PhD in ecology. We did an hour with him. We're going to do an hour with Professor Jordan Peterson this week. Let's aim for somewhere in 3 to 4 weeks. We'll actually just do the full show, it's about an hour, and let's agree on some topics and do that if you want to. That sounds great to me.
Good. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it sounds. I really appreciate it, brother Mark. Honestly, I was looking forward to having you on, and it really does. We all get a sense of. We get warm and fuzzies thinking about, hey, we don't have, not everyone has to hate each other.
Mr. Crowder, you are my son, and I love you. So.
Thank you very much. And Room 104 on HBO. Look at that, a plug right in this. Mark Duplass will be back. Music's playing. Many of you are still unaware of the items available at louderwithcrowdershop.com. Not only do they make you look and feel better, but they serve a multitude of purposes. Like our Socialism is for Fag shirts, assisting in identifying potential allies.
I found that shirt very offensive.
I think it's pretty funny.
Or our Bad Hombres Firearm t-shirt, helping you know who to avoid.
Am I to take that shirt to mean that you support some kind of firearm registry?
Or this one.
Hey, look, it's my face.
I hate it. Though louderwithcrowdershop.com isn't for everyone.
But can I buy the mug from the shop without joining the mug club?
No! The rest of you, check out the merchandise at louderwithcrowdershop.com today. Glad to have you. Mark Duplass, how lovely was that?
Great interview.
Hope we have him back. And you know what? Actually, I think I will do with Mark Duplass. Him and I will pick a few topics where we can actually go over, talk about them, but also have some points and counterpoints in a respectful arena. Maybe do it live in person for a charity that we both agree on.
That'd be awesome.
Could be like St. Jude's or something like that. So if you want to see that,
That'd be
tweet
really cool.
him at Mark Duplass, me at S. Crowder, maybe not at Not Gay Jared can moderate, or whoever Mark Duplass wants. But always glad to have him back. And I think we're actually going to have Lacey Green on the program soon. We're going to bring Sally Cohn back. By the way, if you know people out there who are left, who are willing to come on the show, we are always happy to host them. That's a big part of this program. It's just really hard to book them.
Yeah,
it's really hard to book them. Tomorrow we have Gavin McGinnis. We are going to do a 1-hour special with Jordan Peterson on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we're going to have Tommy Loren live in studio, which is her first kind of live in studio full interview since some of the controversies. Yeah. So she'll be right here in this chair.
That chair right there.
Right there in that chair. Now it's not designed to be the leg chair, but with Tommy Loren, it's always a leg chair. So we'll see you tomorrow on YouTube. By the way, this is the full free week for people who are not Mug Club members. This show happens every single day, whether you want it to or not, at crtv.com, louderwithcrowder.com/Mug Club. It is $99 annually, $69 for students, veterans, or active military. You get a hand-etched mug, and you get this show every day, along with Mark Levin, Michelle Malk, and a handful more shows, and a whole bunch coming down the pipeline. A lot of people, especially since YouTube has been doing what they're doing, there are a lot of people who are going to be linking up arms here. And, of course, you also get Morning Grinders, Not Gay Jared and Courtney show
put that up
on
Friday.
So we'll see you tomorrow on YouTube, 9 p.m. every single night, and then Thursday the live stream at 8 as per usual. Tomorrow, Gavin McGinnis. We'll see you then. Bye.